I went running downstairs to get off of the cruise ship, and I'm running down the pier. Now, this is Nassau, Bahamas, in the summer, and I'm wearing a full tuxedo running down the pier in like 100-degree heat, in the humidity of Nassau, and I'm screaming, Danielle, Danielle! Now, if you rewind, she's never heard of me at all because I've always been one step behind her. So she turns around and she says,
"Who the heck is that?"
Flip and Dani here. We're super excited about this podcast, and we're super excited about this episode where we're actually sharing with you our freedom story.
Yeah, we thought it was perfect to introduce it to you here at the Animal Kingdom because one of our priorities when it comes to freedom is time freedom. So we actually moved to Florida and we're 30 minutes away from the park so that we can come here anytime that we want to smile, be inspired, and enjoy our day. And so, again, we're excited to share our story with you. Here's episode 1. Enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, Flip and Dani here. We'd like to welcome you to the Freedom Show. This is season 2.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we're super excited to be back in action. We got a little new digs here. We got the new background. We're rolling.
Yes, we are super, super excited. So, like Flip said, this is season 2 of our podcast. So, if you remember, we did a 365-day series in 2022.
Wait, so that 365 days of every day doing a podcast, that was season 1?
That was season 1. I was just kind of giving us a little initiation into the podcast game.
Let's hope season 2 does not repeat season 1.
Here in 2023 in season 2, we are changing it up a little bit, and we're going to do some solo episodes because the entirety of 2022 was about our freedom journey, and we wanted to show you kind of a day in the life, right? What we were doing every single day, the ups and downs, the crazies, also providing some financial education, some real estate education along the way, and now we want to start inviting you into our network and into our world. So what that means is that we're going to start this episode telling you about our freedom story, because that's what this podcast is really about. And from week to week, you may be listening to us again and telling a different story. You may be very much more likely listening to somebody in our network telling their freedom story. And that's, I think, what we're really most excited about.
Yeah.
Because everything that we've done has been in pursuit of freedom. And there's many types of freedom. We talk about financial freedom probably the most, but there's also time freedom. And I think that is actually more valuable than financial freedom, is having the ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want. There's also geography freedom. We talk about how Flip and I moved to Florida.
Yeah, one of my favorites.
Yes, we got tired of the snow in Ohio. Our companies are still there, but we have the freedom to move and manage our companies from afar. There's things that people don't talk about. Those are probably the top 3. But I think a lot about health freedom. We have all of our limbs. We went to the doctor after building all of our companies and got a bill of clean health. We went to the dentist this morning and got a bill of clean health, right? So there is a freedom around knowing that you are a healthy individual who has everything that they want and need to be able to live an amazing life. So there's parts of our journey that have been associated with that, and I'd love to bring on people that are going to talk more about that. So this is just kind of an intro to tell you we just want to talk about all of it. I think we're all in pursuit of freedom, and depending on where you're at in your journey, that what you're aiming for could be financial, could be time, it could be geography, it could be health, it could be some type of other freedom. So we're going to do it all and invite some amazing guests on, and we're really, really excited to get that going.
Just real quick, though, I want to let everybody know that I did get the upgrade early. I now have a titanium hip.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, I got the hip 2000. So
yes.
I got an upgrade a little early.
He's out on the golf course again and everything.
That's right.
I love it. That is a different type of freedom, right?
That is.
He's always wanted to be golfing. He had a bad hip. Now, every single morning, he's actually gotten some new golf clubs. He's out, like, the guys know him by name. It's like you're walking, you pull up in your golf cart, right?
Yep.
And the guys are like, here's your balls. That's how I imagine it anyway, because I don't go with you every morning. But like, hello, Flip. ship.
Pretty close to that.
But that is to me just a different type of freedom as well. I don't know, a freedom to enjoy your passion and have zero stress about it. Getting to start your day the way that you want to. That's just so awesome. So, but we're going to go ahead and just roll into this first episode to tell you a little bit about us. We're actually going to start with a story that we don't share a lot. I don't even know if we shared this story the way we're going to share it today on our 365-day series.
No, it takes too long.
Yeah, so you're going to get to hear a story that we've kind of figured out how to go back and forth so that you can really realize how weird this is. So my challenge to you is to count how many commonalities you see in Flip's and my journey before we even met. And I'm going to start.
Roll it.
So I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and I played the trumpet.
And I grew up in Michigan, and I also played the trumpet.
I got a full scholarship to Southeastern Bible College in Lakeland, Florida for music performance.
And I got a full scholarship to go to school at the University of North Florida in Jacksonville, Florida. Full scholarship as well on music performance.
Yeah, that's just so weird.
Crazy.
So while I'm at college, I got invited to audition for Christmas Brass, which is a band that plays during Christmas, obviously, during the holidays, at Walt Disney World. I auditioned and was accepted.
And after I arrived to Jacksonville, to the University of North Florida, the first thing somebody said is, you have to play the Christmas gig at Disney. And I auditioned, and I got into the group my first year.
Huh, funny.
It's crazy.
So after Christmas Brass in college for me, I was invited to go play in the big band on cruise ships. And so I accepted, drove down to Miami, Florida, and boarded my first cruise ship.
And just a few months after I finished that Christmas job in Disney, I also got a call to join a ship, and I drove down to Miami, Florida, and got on my very first cruise ship.
First cruise ship was the Carnival Ecstasy.
Yep, and that's where it's going to start to get interesting, because my first cruise ship was the Carnival Ecstasy as well. So to jump into the story, when I got to Disney, after coming down to Florida, when I got to Disney, one of the first rehearsals, the guy next to me leans over and says, "Oh, you go to school in North Florida?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, so you know Danielle?" And I said, "Nope, never heard of her." They said, "Oh, okay." And the subject was dropped. I never thought of it again. Well, 5 months later, when I started working on the cruise ship, Carnival Ecstasy, that first night, the trumpet player next to me says, "Oh my gosh, you went to school in Florida? You worked at Disney? Then you know Danielle." And I'm like, all right, that's it. Now, who is this Danielle person? Come to find out that morning when I walked on to the Carnival Ecstasy to start my first job on cruise ships, she was walking off of the Carnival Ecstasy because I was actually replacing her. Again, one step behind her. So it was about a year and a half later that a hurricane came into the Caribbean, and all of the cruise ships avoided the hurricane, and they all, not all, but most of them went to Nassau in the Bahamas, and the ship that I was on still had a captain's cocktail dance set, and so we were playing the oldies, the Glenn Miller, and the In the Mood songs, and so the curtain opens up and we're playing, and there was actually people in the audience, which I was shocked at because we were docked. Usually everybody's off on land and having fun in the port. And about halfway through the first or second song, the trumpet player next to me, who asked me beforehand if I knew who Danielle was, he leans over and says, "Hey, remember that Danielle person?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's her in the front row." And I was like, "No way." So we finished the dance set, and I went and I get up on the stage, and I opened up the curtains, and they're gone. She was gone. Her and her old band came over from her ship, and I figured they would stay afterwards to talk to us, but no, they were gone. So I went and grabbed my ship ID, and I went running downstairs to get off of the cruise ship. And I'm running down the pier. Now, this is Nassau, Bahamas, in the summer. And I'm wearing a full tuxedo running down the pier in like 100-degree heat, in the humidity of Nassau. And I'm screaming, "Danielle, Danielle!" Now, if you rewind, she's never heard of me at all because I've always been one step behind her. So she turns around and she says,
"Who the heck is that?"
So after a very weird 5 minutes of explaining everything, awkward, we all laughed about it, and then we ended up going out that night. All of her band and all of my band, we all went out to a club in Nassau and probably did bad things that I can't remember.
That's for sure.
Yeah, so that was how we met. met, and people ask us how we met, and it was about 2 months after that I was promoted in the fleet, and I was sent to my next ship, and I got on the ship, and there's Danielle, and ever since we've been working together ever since, and that was the Carnival Destiny.
Yes.
Oh, I couldn't make that up if I tried.
So I don't know if anybody counted, because I didn't count. I should have actually did some marks on that, because I have never counted the commonalities. But
Yeah.
we love telling the story that way now, because one day we were on a plane traveling somewhere, and we were figuring out, how do we share this story?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what if I say I played the trumpet, and then you say you played the trumpet, and then we say I moved to Florida, or I went to college in Florida. Anyways, it's kind of fun to share that story. When we're in a live event and we have limited time, we're saying it really super fast.
Yeah.
So you got the slowed down and more details version. But yeah, it was destiny. I really think
Yep.
it was destiny that you and I are together, and I'm super excited. And I love you.
Aw, shucks.
That wasn't planned.
That wasn't planned.
Okay.
And I love you. There we go.
All right. So we're going to go next into our freedom story. This is really what this podcast is about, is telling you, sharing our freedom story. What every guest will do on this podcast is sharing their freedom story. We'll have like tax experts. We'll have different financial experts in different industries. We might have some health experts, so like we talked about, different experts. So we'll still have them share some really, great information to provide value to your life. But for us, this is really about the story. The story that we're all in pursuit of is achieving freedom in our life. So, Flip, do you want to kind of start about? So we've told them we're on cruise ships, right? Mm-hmm. We now know each other. You can fast forward through any of the parts that you want to, or you can highlight some of the parts as you start our freedom story.
Yeah, so, we were musicians, and musicians have a lot of free time, and so we were working with the art auctioneers on board. And then Danielle found out how much art auctioneers make, which was exponentially greater than what musicians made on the cruise ship.
Yep.
And so next thing I know, my cabin door gets thrown open and says, "You're going to be an art auctioneer." And so it was about maybe 4 months later, we got off the cruise ship as musicians, and like 2 weeks after that, we got back on a cruise ship as art auctioneers. So then we did that for another 4 years, and then we were promoted to doing that on land. And so now we moved to somewhere in the United States, because we actually had to have a house, because we didn't have a house. We didn't have anything.
Yeah.
We had a car, but we had no overhead.
Right.
And so we actually got a house, got married all at the same time.
He proposed to me on a bathtub.
Yep.
He was sitting on a bathtub smoking a cigarette, weren't you? He's not supposed to be smoking a cigarette in the cruise ship.
In the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean.
I was saying,
I just wanted to throw that in there.
It was in the tropical islands of the Caribbean. And this was before all the anti-smoking stuff, so I was fine to smoke on the ship.
I also wanted to make one more note in the story that you just told. You called me Danielle.
I know. Well,
that was really weird.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, just don't call me.
You're just still in that. You're traveling that era of our life before we actually switched to Flip and Dani.
Yep.
Okay, you can keep going.
Yeah, just don't call me Philip. So anyway, so then we were promoted, and so we were traveling all over the country every other week, selling artwork in hotel ballrooms. And this was all fine and dandy until 2008, when the real estate crash happened, and it was hard to sell artwork to people that were losing their houses. And so that came to a halt, and we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do next. And we were both drawn to real estate, and we really wanted to do it. And what's the first thing most people do? Not everybody, but most people, when they want to get into real estate, they go and get their real estate license.
That's right.
And so we studied and got our realtor's license, and we got our license September of 2008. And if you know the time frame, the time frame of that, that's like being a bad comic. It's all about timing. And so we got our license, and it took us 8 months to do one deal as realtors. Mm-hmm. And we're like, okay, this isn't fun. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to get into real estate investing. And so Dani reached out to 3 different people. Actually, you emailed 3 different people about the interest in becoming a real estate investor. We were looking for a mentor. And one person replied. And we're thankful that he did. His name is Phil. and he had a program, 12 ways of how to buy and sell real estate, and so we jumped in with both feet up to our eyeballs and knowledge on how to do all of these different strategies. And back then, it's like, why do I need all of these strategies? And now we're like, thank goodness we learned all those strategies. And so that's what just that propelled us into real estate investing, because what we did is what most people don't do when they study with a mentor, or when they take or buy a program or take a class. We actually took action. So, he said, Phil told us, here's what I want you to do. And we said, oh, Roger, got it. And we went and did it. And we got deals. And people just couldn't believe, like, wow, you guys are great. Or you guys, oh my gosh, I can't believe how good you're doing. I'm like, well, we did what he said. So
isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly.
We just paid him for his advice.
Yeah. He said, jump, and we jumped. And so it started from there. And we were just telling a story, we built up a nest egg while we were working on cruise ships, but when we started living on land, that nest egg started to dwindle. And then when it took 8 months to do one deal as realtors, that was really digging into our savings. And so when we went into the real estate investing, we're like, okay, how can we do this? But let's keep it on a shoestring budget. Let's try to not use as much money, because a lot of the strategies were no money from us. And so the story about doing the multicolored paper, we'd write with a Sharpie on a piece of paper, hey, we're looking to buy a couple houses in this neighborhood. We just yada yada yada, and then you photocopy that on this bright colored paper and you put it on houses in the morning. And so we would get up and we would walk neighborhoods. It was Texas, so we would do it in the morning, and we would just we did the work. We hoofed it. We drove to a neighborhood, spent 2-3 hours putting flyers on people's doors, and she would talk to people. I would avoid them like the plague. But that's how we got started. There were sometimes we would get back to the car and we'd already have a couple of voicemails. And so it was we knew that back then this is what we want to do, because we loved it. It wasn't work. It was yay, I get to put fires on houses today.
It really was fun.
It was
Oddly
fun.
Enough.
Yep, it was fun.
Yeah. So from there, we're going to fast forward. We could do like a 2-hour podcast if we actually go into every single detail of our journey.
Hurry things up here?
But I like that you really did the start, right? That was kind of the engine that got us started. And the key for us is that we did hire a mentor so that we could skip the learning curve, right? And in that market, that was more critical than ever to understand the market and which strategies were going to work. So we were successful doing that. We also teamed up with people in that. There was like 5 of us that were doing it together, and that's another theme of our life and our freedom journey, is that we've always believed in having a team around us for accountability purposes and just simply to have more fun doing this, because most everything that you do and start is going to be a struggle, and if you're doing it with other people, you get to laugh about some of those roller coaster rides that you've been on, especially when you get past them and you get to look back together about where you were and how far you've come. So that's 2 things that's just true about us and our freedom journey, is that we always find somebody who's exactly where we want to be, and we hire them to mentor us. And then 2, we always team with other people. There's never once where we've done something by ourselves. We've always found somebody to help us for accountability reasons and just because we enjoy doing things with other people. So I think that's a good thing to point out as to why I feel is one of the big reasons for our success. So from doing those types of deals, then we're in Texas for that, right? And so is Arizona our next trip?
Yes, yeah. So we were in Texas and we were doing multiple ways of real estate investing, and then your mom got sick and was in the hospital, and so
she was in the ICU.
We had lived in Texas for 10 years at that point, and we're like, I think it's time. And so we loaded up the truck and moved to Anthem, Texas, Arizona, just north of Phoenix, and so we got there, but all of the strategies that we were doing in Texas weren't as it wasn't as amenable to do them in Arizona. We could, it was just not as easy. But wholesale properties were, you could throw a rock and hit a wholesale house in Phoenix. And so that was a strategy that we focused on while we were in Arizona. And we got that down really, really well. I put a lot of miles on the car because I was driving for dollars every day, but that's how we found
That's
our
how
deal. Learning how to be a chameleon, which is you need to be in not only for location, but also for the market.
Yep.
Because you could live in the same location for 10, 15 years and you're going to go through so many different markets. You need to know how to do all the different strategies because at one point one's going to work and then one's not going to work.
Yep.
So that's all. It was also very important that we learned very quickly. So we were in Arizona and we were doing wholesale deals. We had an AstroTurf backyard, which I enjoyed.
We did, and so I was starting to get on Facebook a lot more while we were in Arizona, and starting to learn who's big in the space of wholesaling, because that was our strategy at the given time. And I thought, hey, if we're going to do this, I'd love to just do volume. So I actually created a volume deals mastermind group and found people who are again doing exactly what we wanted to do. Surrounded ourselves with them to be able to learn and network. And we actually found somebody in that group that was in Ohio and was doing turnkey real estate. And so we actually built a really great relationship with him. And so we started actually helping him sell turnkey real estate while we were in Arizona. Flip would be, he likes to tell the story. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember walking around in my AstroTurf backyard
Yes.
on the phone in Arizona, talking to a gentleman in New Hampshire about a property in Ohio that none of us had ever been to, and selling that house to him. And I sold the house to him, and I got off the phone. I'm like, I think I really like this.
Yeah, there's something really cool about working with investors, right? Investors, you get to have that repeat relationship.
Yep.
You can sell them 10 houses, not one. Or they can sell you 10 houses and not one, right?
Yep.
It's this collaboration of you are on the same journey, doing similar things. So I love that. And I know you always say working with buyers and sellers as a realtor, that's like a one-time transaction every 7 years.
Yeah.
Right? So
Exactly.
this investor relationship really kind of taught us, hey, this is something that we want to do. Also, we really fell in love with passive income when we were doing the sub 2 wrap. So it's not something we're going to talk about here in this first episode. We might talk about it in another one, or go back to our 2022. I guarantee we talked about it and told you how it's done and all that other stuff.
I think we talked about it 365 days in a row. So.
Not subject to, but
No, just passive.
subject to deals really taught us the power of passive income. And so we had fallen in love with that. And so turnkey real estate and working with this gentleman in Ohio was like, hey, this is other investors working to build their portfolio and build passive income as well, just like we've been doing in the sub 2 wrap strategy. And, it was kind of clicked right for us.
Yep.
And we said, hey, this is what we want to do. And there was a situation with a house in Arizona where we had to move, right? When we moved to Arizona, it was because my mom had just started getting better. We thought we were going to lose her when she was in the ICU. And I just said, hey, it'd be really nice to move to Arizona. We've been here in Texas with your family for 10 years. It'd be nice to move to Arizona for a little bit because I don't know how much longer my mom has. Thank God she is still alive at 80 something, right?
Yeah, that was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah. So thankful for that. So we did move to Arizona. We rented, right? So we sold our house in Texas and then rented a house in Arizona because we didn't know how long we were going to be there and we didn't know exactly where we wanted to live. And so the landlord, about 6 months or 8 months into us living there, they got foreclosed on, or they were getting foreclosed on. So
They
asked us if we could move so they could move back into there.
Yeah, I think it was the phone conversation went, so do you need 30 days or 60 days to move out of the house?
So I'm going to go into why saying that this little part of the story I feel like is important because at that point in time we were like, okay, what do? We pack up this big it was a really beautiful, nice, big house, that we were in. And we pack up this, big house and then moved, somewhere else within Arizona, or, hey, we're working with this guy in Ohio and we're actually doing really good things.
And he kept saying, if you lived in Ohio, we could do more deals
Exactly.
together.
So suddenly we're like, maybe we should move to Ohio. Flip's was born in Napoleon, Ohio. So he was just like, hey, it's moving back home to me, essentially. Right. And I had never lived somewhere where it frequently snowed, so it kind of felt a little exciting. And ultimately we decided to move. So that's our story. And the reason I tell you this part of the story, and you're going to hear it frequently as we continue sharing our freedom journey, is that everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
And Flip likes to say you can never tell good from bad. So having that phone call and just be like, what? Like, you want us to move? We just got here. Like, we've only been here 8 months. That, at the time, I bet I can't even remember the feeling, but I bet it felt horrible. I bet it was just like crushing because we loved this house. It was great. We didn't love Arizona per se. The people there are a little wacky, but
it's the heat.
It's the heat, yeah. But it was probably crushing. But this move and this decision for us to move to Ohio changed our lives.
Yes.
So we do believe everything happens for a reason. You can never tell good from bad. We believe that today we are exactly where we are meant to be. We're on this path for a reason. And at the end of this podcast, we're actually going to talk about what would we do differently. And that's going to be an interesting story relating back to what I just said about everything happens for a reason. So we do move to Ohio, and it's 2015 November, right? We rent a house sight unseen.
Yeah, sight unseen, driving down the street, going, boy, I hope we like this place.
Yeah, I hope we like the neighborhood. So we move, and then we start working with his partner for about a year. The relationship ended up not working out, not because for any other reason than we had different ways of running our business, right?
Yeah.
There was one way he liked to run it. There was one way that I liked to run it. We were partnering and teaming up together to run it together. And we didn't know before we made this move that our ways of running business didn't work together long term. So we're still really, really great friends. And again, it was still meant to be. Even ending that, partnership and relationship felt horrible. And that was in 2016.
Yeah, beginning of 2017.
Yeah, beginning of 2017.
Yep.
So it felt, like our lives were ending. We moved all the way over here to Ohio. And I say over here, like I'm in Ohio, I'm in Florida. So we moved all the way to Ohio. And now we're ending this partnership that we moved there for. So again, felt, heart-wrenching. But we, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. We actually started building an Amazon store. We created a product. We ordered
still have the website. Yep.
We're not going to get into that part of the story, but we couldn't stop being in real estate. We were dragged right back into real estate.
We tried to, but we would get phone calls. Hey, I've got a duplex for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you know what? We're not okay.
So really crazy. So we get back into real estate, and in 2017 we form Freedom Real Estate Group, which is our very first company of our Freedom family of companies. And it took us. We actually went through a good exercise to come up with that name, right?
Yeah.
And I love that we took that time because it's really at a core level become who we are. It's become what we talk about today. This podcast, our 2022 podcast was Freedom Through Passive Income. This podcast is the Freedom Show. Yep. Our family of companies is the Freedom family of companies. And Freedom Family Investments is now our overall brand. So everything has really come together bit by bit, but we did not know it every step of the way. It was a wild roller coaster, including starting Freedom Real Estate Group.
Yep.
We started it out of our house at the time in Ohio. Yep. We hired our first admin who worked out of our house. Yep. And then we ended up getting an office, and we ended up hiring a salesperson, I think was the very first person, sales and marketing person. And then we hired a transaction coordinator. That was our third hire, right? And then it didn't take but 6 months for us to be knocking down an office wall because we were growing so fast. Is that, am I remembering everything correctly?
Because the office was 5,000 square feet, but we said we don't need that back 2,000 square feet. So they put up a wall so that we didn't have to pay for that 2,000 square feet. And the wall was up, and it was literally probably like 2 weeks later that we're like, okay, we have to take the wall down.
Yeah.
So
it was crazy. We literally had just put it up.
Yep.
But I remember that video,
yep,
like of you taking a hammer and being like, wow. Yep. It was crazy. So anyways, we're going to fast forward a little bit because we've told this story many, many times, and people who know us now kind of know this half of the story. What you didn't know was part of that beginning journey that we don't really talk about often, because the farther you get in life, the harder it is to remember everything that happened at the very, very beginning. The gap just gets bigger. So you find yourself frequently talking about your most recent roller coasters, the most recent trials and tribulations of getting to where you want to go. So we're going to go through this. We ended up building all 5 companies that relate to a turnkey company. So Freedom Real Estate Group was a turnkey marketing company. And we were buying houses, rehabbing houses. We were going to tenant the houses, but we were outsourcing everything but the marketing piece.
Right.
We were building our audience. We were getting to know the buyers who wanted a product like this, and we were selling them that product. But we outsourced renovations, we outsourced property management, we outsourced acquisitions to the wholesalers that were bringing us deals. So lo and behold, we've told you before that we love working with investors because it's a long-term relationship. We're all on the same path. We get to be friends forever. And we get to do things together, and we get to collaborate, and we get to build wealth together. And so we were losing customers because our property management, we had outsourced it to like 5 different people. But prior to that, we were struggling just getting started because the contractors were just, quite frankly, ripping us off.
Yeah.
They were doing a bad job.
Nice way to put it.
Yeah, they were doing a bad job. They would take pictures of things that were finished, but it was like you take a corner of a painted wall and go, look, the room's painted. And if you actually went there and walked there in person, you realize the rest of the room is not painted, and you're paying somebody for doing a job that's only partly done. Or they take pictures of different houses that aren't even yours, and you don't know because you don't have time to be on site all the time to watch them.
Yep.
So the very first company that we bring in-house, not expecting to build this company, was a renovation company. It was called Bulldog Renovations when we first pulled it in.
Right.
And we hired a project manager to be able to be accountable to us, to be on our side. You go to visit the house, make sure that they're actually in the house, make sure they're actually doing the work, walk the property before we pay them. Let's make sure that we don't, lose these companies before we've even gotten started. So that was the first company that we brought in, and now it was out of necessity. And then the second one that we brought in, which was actually our third company, was property management, because we outsourced it to 5 different property management companies, and there was just mismanagement on all levels. And when you're in the turnkey real estate business, the real relationship is with your property manager. We can sell you a great product, but you are going to have a relationship with the property manager for the next 15, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
If they're doing a bad job, you don't want to buy anymore in that area, because that's where the relationship is. So we brought property management in-house. And since we brought property management in-house, we went ahead and built a brokerage, because you have to have a broker to have a property management company. So having a retail arm of that, where you can have agents in there that are buying and listing properties, that meant that every time we bought a property that was a retail flip, not selling to an investor, actually selling to an owner-occupant, we could go ahead and list it through our brokerage and keep all the money in-house. So that was company number 4. That wasn't built out of necessity. It was just built because we had to build the property management company anyway.
Might as well.
And then the 5th one, I'm going to let Flip tell you about, because he was in charge of acquisitions.
Yeah, so I was the acquisition department.
Yes.
And so I was responsible to get all the properties in every week, and I was constantly bombarded with Danny and or Tiffany saying, we need more properties. And there was this one time when they said they needed more properties, and I reached out to all my contacts, which were wholesalers, because that's typically where we got their properties from, and nobody had any deals. And that's when we went, we need to, this is bad. Somebody just turned off the water, and I need to take a shower. And so that was bad news. That was when we realized we need our own acquisitions department. And so that's when we created Cash for Ohio Houses, again, out of necessity. And, that one's been a slow struggle, but it's finally getting into its stride now. Yep. And it's, so that way we're in control of our acquisitions. We can control, everything that's coming in. Now we still deal with wholesalers. We buy a lot of property still from wholesalers, just not as much, and we have more control. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's company number 5.
Yes.
And so if we're going to hit to our freedom journey in the freedom show, our freedom story, it comes after these 5 companies.
Yes.
Because we are super excited about these 5 companies. It's great. We're vertically integrated. That is the most powerful thing you can be as a turnkey company, is vertically integrated, because you control all the pieces of the puzzle. Now you really can do more things and serve investors at a very, very high level.
Right.
So we're super excited. But Flip goes to buy or it was our acquisitions team. We had actually built the acquisition company out, and one of the guys on our acquisitions team finds a package. It's a 56 unit and 15 other properties, 12 single family, 3 duplexes. Oh, Flip wants the 12 single family and 3 duplexes.
I had them sold.
Yeah.
We didn't even buy them yet. I already had them sold.
So we already have investors who want these exact properties in these exact areas, these exact layouts, everything. So he loves it, but the seller will not break this package apart. So we're like, okay, fine, we're not ready for apartments yet. We just built 5 companies a little too fast, and we're faster than we wanted to. So we're going to wholesale it. And what wholesaling means, for anybody who doesn't understand, that means we're going to assign the contract that we have on that particular property for a fee. So I believe we had that under contract for $1.3 million. So we found a buyer who was interested in buying the apartments. It's during COVID, and so the lender ends up falling through. And then I think 6 months goes by.
Yep.
We're all getting antsy. We're really frustrated that we don't have these properties yet. We kept pushing, and it just, everything was taking just way too long. And finally, the buyer that we were going to sell it to, wholesale it to, says, hey, I had to change lenders. I actually want to renegotiate the deal. And he essentially wanted to cut us out of the deal, meaning we wouldn't have made any money. So we waited 6 months. The seller is, upset, frustrated that he's had to wait 6 months. And now he just wants to cut us out of the deal. It turned into a no really fast. So literally, we said, nope, we're going to buy it. And we told the seller, you know what, that wholesaler is not going to, or the buyer that we were going to wholesale it to is not going to buy the property anymore. We're actually going to buy it. And he was very frustrated at that point, as were we. And we said, we will do it in 2 weeks. And so he was like, okay, if you can do it in 2 weeks, well, then we'll go ahead and make this happen. And so in 2 weeks, we raised not only $1.3 million for the purchase, we raised another $800,000 for the rehab, plus all the money we needed for the other 15 properties and its rehab. We did the due diligence on the 56 unit, had somebody from my mastermind actually underwrite the apartments because this is brand new for us. One of the private lenders who actually lent us money on the apartment complex came from Indiana to Ohio to be able to see it, because he knew that this is the very first time we were going to do it. But he knew us. He knew we had experience rehabbing houses. Like, we had all the experience. It was the apartments that was brand new. Little did he or us realize the apartments are actually easier than doing like houses that are all like far apart. But anyways, in 2 weeks we get all of this done. One of our mastermind partners underwrites the deal and says, if you guys don't buy it, then I will. And we said, all right, we are in.
All we needed to hear.
So 2 weeks later, we close. And the nightmare begins, and we've told this story. You can go back and find it, 56 unit horror story. I think it is.
Yeah, just Google drugs, thugs, and bugs, and you should find it.
So this 56 unit, it really was a horror story. But to fast forward to the end, it was a home run. It took us a little over 19 months. At the closing table, we did get a bunch of keys, and none of the keys worked. It turned out the supervisor for those buildings and those tenants was a drug dealer. He was pulling people out of rehab that had just cleaned up and were on subsidy programs. He would sign a lease to them through the subsidy, so the subsidy is paying for that tenant's lease, and then he would put them back on drugs. And so this entire complex needed to be completely and totally evicted. And we didn't know this whole story because we did 2 weeks of due diligence, but the numbers worked. So it didn't matter. We blitzed it because that's what we do. We go fast, and there was no way we were going to fail. That's one of our kind of never give up mindsets. We're like, we're going to take every single problem one day at a time, and we're going to conquer that problem, and we're going to get tomorrow's problem, and then we're going to conquer that one, and we're going to just keep on conquering it until we get to the end. And the mastermind members who actually partnered with us on the deal, and we're going to buy it. They're like, I cannot believe the tenacity that you guys took everything in stride. Like, all the problems that you had, like, it's like, if you can do this complex, you guys can do anything. So it's a crazy story. You'll have to listen to a different podcast episode from 2022 if you want to hear about it, if you want to hear the numbers. But we ended up, we bought it for 1.3, ended up being under the rehab, like I think 650 or something like that. All the numbers are in the podcast episodes. It appraised, just the 48 unit appraised at $3.9 million, like 19 months later. Home run, the 8 unit right across or right down the street, we ended up selling for 3 times, I think, the price we ended up putting into it. It was just that was the day we went, if we didn't think we achieved freedom at this point, because it really felt like we had 5 more jobs with 5 other companies. If we didn't think that we are on the road to freedom or have achieved it, that was the day we went, boom, we did it. And we were so excited. The team was excited. We fell in love with multifamily because of the economies of scale, that we were able to reduce the cost, that $800,000 budget. The cost got reduced largely because our contractors were willing to do the work for less because they could buy in bulk and they could put all the materials on site. They weren't having to drive to Home Depot and Lowe's every single day. It was just a wonderful terrifying experience for our
Yes.
very first deal. But that really was the culmination, I think, of our freedom journey, and what launched company number 6. And we said, hey, we want to do more of this. We are going to intentionally build this company, and it's a fund management and syndication company. That's where we are. We had hired a CEO even as we built that company number 6 to run companies 1 through 5, so that we could, just make sure that these companies were taken care of while we built the new one. And, really that's where we were. And we started the Freedom Podcast.
Right.
That Freedom through Passive Income.
There you go.
Was the podcast in 2022 where we started sharing this journey, because we really truly felt we've not only built 5 businesses, we just did this and made a killing for our private lenders, our investors who actually loaned us the money. They made a killing. We made a killing. It was truly a win-win. And we said, this is it. All of the hard work was for this day for us to see that this come true. And so we wanted to share the journey, because everything that we do, we like to team. We told you that at the very beginning of the podcast. We like to team up, and we like to do it with others because it's frankly just more fun. And we like to collaborate with people and help others. And so we're going to end this freedom story with a quote that really kind of rings true for us. It's been Flip's favorite quote for a very, very long time. Anytime he's asked, this is the quote that he says. And Flip, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, but I have to read it though, because every time somebody asks about it, I can't get it right. But this is a Zig Ziglar quote, and again, when we first heard it, I was like, there it is. That's it right there. It says, you can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want.
That's right. And we live by that from the very beginning. We've always been willing to help. We've always been willing to network. We've always been willing to team. And today we are where we are because of, I think, that mindset and that attitude. And just, there's a few other things that we'll share at the very, very end. But that is a very, very powerful quote, and I think that it's absolutely 100% true. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, and then thank you for letting us share our freedom story. So we're going to share a few more things on this first podcast, and we're going to go into Freedom Family Investments. So who are we? I want to just simply say you've heard the entire story. So Freedom Family Investments is really a culmination of everything that we've built and the team that we've built it with. We would not be where we are today if it were not for the team members. And there's many of them that have been with us for years on this journey. And they are just as passionate as we are about giving back. Our vision truly is helping others achieve financial freedom, following our journey, but maybe in a more passive way. We're going to talk about what would we do if we started all over. And we're going to share what that means to us. But there's people out there that they love their job, right? They just want to know how to get where they want in life, whether it's achieving geography freedom or time freedom or financial freedom. They want to figure out who they can trust. And that's where it kind of comes into like the top 3 questions that we always talk about. And we're going to talk about this with every single person that we have on the podcast, because I think these 3 questions are asked by most anybody who's starting anything new. And it's, where do I start? Which path is right for me? And who do I trust? The which path is right for me might be very conveniently related to real estate, but it could be in other ways too. Because even if you're talking about health, you could talk about which path is right for me. You've got CrossFit, you've got yoga, you've got all kinds of things. So 3 questions: where do I start? Which path is right for me? And who do I trust? And those are questions that we're constantly trying to answer, because it's certainly the questions that we asked when we first started. And we didn't exactly get the answer we wanted for question number 2, which path is right for me. And you'll hear that when we answer the question, what would you change? It's very directly related to which path is right for me. So what we've done with Freedom Family Investments is we've built this turnkey world, which is passive income, but we're going to say it's passive income right down the middle of the map, right? If you've got a map, and I am actually thinking of Matthew's imagery that he just created for us. If you've got a map with 2 hemispheres, right? Right down the middle is like this. It's not exactly active. It is not exactly passive. It's, hey, you're going to have some control over your investment, but better believe that you are going to be you're going to be talking to your property manager whenever there's a tenant turn or whenever there's, anything like that. And then there's the passive part, where if you go to freedomfamilyinvestments.com, you're going to say, you want to get paid rent or you want to get paid interest. And the interest is those funds and those syndications, private money lending, master notes, all of those things where you don't have to be involved. You just have to get comfortable with the investment itself, get comfortable with the team that's performing and producing the returns and the results results for that investment, and you're pretty much hands off. So if you're a doctor and you love your job and you don't want another one, like we have, like 5 or 6 of them, then you get to invest passively. So those 3 questions are something that we're going to talk about on every single episode that we have. And so on our offerings, in order to answer question number 2, which path is right for me, we have something like, it's on the left-hand side, it's all of our opportunities, right? And on the top, it's going, do you want liquidity? Do you want cash flow? Do you want tax benefits? Do you want wealth preservation? Do you want compounding? Do you want equity? Like, it's just asking all the things that you might not even know to ask in the first place. And that's what I mean by which path is right for me. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you don't ask the questions in order to figure out which type of investment is going to be best for you. So as we've grown, we've started realizing, hey, this is the path. These are the questions that are being asked, not always being answered. Let's make sure that we're providing the education and information that allows people to make better decisions on their freedom journey and on their path. And then lastly, the who to trust. This one is a really, really big one for us. When I was on the one on the phone talking to investors, people would, the wisest question I heard at the end of a conversation was, what did I not ask you that I should have? And I would always say, in fact, when it was turnkey real estate, I would say, properties in Ohio don't always have ACs, because that was just like really weird to me because of Texas and Arizona, right? I was just like, what? You guys don't have ACs on every single house? I don't even understand. So that was one thing that I said. But as I progressed, I started saying, hey, you should be asking about where have we failed? As a company, where have we failed and how did we handle that? And I think that's a really important question. Like, you should be seeing people's track record, right? We have a performance PDF that we put on our website that shows all of our properties and how we're performing on them even today, so that you can see what our track record is, especially in multifamily, because it's the newest thing that we're doing. And you want to be working with somebody that does know what they're doing. So we produce something like that. We also produce like expert panel videos where we're actually talking to different attorneys and CPAs and CFOs and different people, private lenders that have been working with us for years. And we're saying, hey, these are the questions I get asked all the time. So I'm just going to ask you. I want you to tell people about them. And we give people, their emails, names, phone number, everything, because we want people to vet. So I say, talk about your failures, because you want to see the character of the person. You want to see the many different things before you go, here's my money. And when you see the character of people, it really changes the game of understanding who they are. So we talk about, in the turnkey world, we talk about the duplex that we lost, I think, over $50,000. And it was
probably north of that, but that's okay.
Yeah. It was because of the contractor mistakes, right? The project manager wasn't going out there and making sure that the work was being done before they got paid. And so we ended up just paying for a rehab twice, I think is ultimately where the loss came from. And what happened at the end of that deal? An investor that bought the deal got a completely and totally rehabbed house, and he got cash flow for a year, I think, on us that we paid for. So we were paying him rent on top of us losing money. We were paying him rent every single month. So he got exactly what was promised. Our private lender, we didn't go back to them and say, oh man, we lost money on this deal. Can we not, can you forgive our interest, or can we pay you less than what is owed? We did not do that. And that does happen in the industry. That private lender didn't even know the deal went wrong, because we didn't need to tell them. What our word was we're going to pay you everything owed and all the interest we owed too. You don't need to know what happened on our side. Shoot. It's a roller coaster ride sometimes, and sometimes we lose money. That's on us, not on you. So they got paid everything that they were owed. And there is not one private lender that we've ever worked with, or bank that that's just who we are. That's what I'm talking about, character, right? They do what they say they're going to do. They make sure that you are paid and you are put first. That's another reason why we're in a volume game. I tell people all the time, it's okay if we lose money on a deal. If we do 10 a month and we lose money on 2, I don't care. I made money on 8 of them. If anybody tells you they know what they're doing in real estate and that they're never going to peel back a wall and find something that's going to cost them another $20,000, then run, because they're lying to you. It just happens. So being able to mitigate those risks and give our investors and our private lenders and the people who are giving us funds and trusting us with them, giving them the faith of who we are and our character, I think that's something that you always need to be talking to people about. So that last question is really, really important to me, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time on it.
I could drive you to that duplex today. I know right where that's at.
So as we close out this episode, let's talk a little bit about lessons learned. We're actually a guest on a podcast just yesterday, and he was asking us these questions, and I said, you know what, we should actually talk about this on the very first episode, and kind of ask questions to us that other people ask us all the time when we're a guest. So the one thing that he said, okay, give me one thing that has been critical to your success. And I know we both answered this one differently. So I've been talking for a little bit, so I'm gonna let you answer.
Well, mine is never giving up. We were going through a lot of different books when we first started in real estate, and one of them was Think and Grow Rich. And the story at the very beginning is the 3 Feet from Gold. And when I read it, I mean, I've read, okay, I'm not like a huge reader, right? I couldn't tell you all the books I've read either, but that one, I could tell you where I was when I read that book, because that one was, that story jumped out at me. And now there's another book called Think and Grow, or 3 Feet from Gold, and there's a movie out, but just that story, and it was just don't give up. You don't know what's on the other side of that 3 feet, you know, and that's been pretty much our mantra since day one.
Yeah.
You know, somebody like the other investors, look at the tenacity you guys had. It's that we just don't know how to quit. We go.
Yes.
And we go until it's done. And then we go a little bit further. You know, and so, but that story is always hit home. And that's one thing that I always tell people, just don't give up. Just don't stop. Just keep going. There will be rewards.
Yes. And that's probably the most important message for a freedom journey.
Yeah.
It is a long journey. This is an overnight success, right?
Yep.
It feels like it sometimes. Once you get here, you're like, whew. And you kind of go, I wonder how I got here. It's like it becomes a little bit of a blur of all the little steps that you had to take in order to get where you are.
Yeah. It took 8 years for that overnight success.
Yeah. For sure. It feels like it was longer, but but my answer to the one thing that is critical to success for me is authenticity. I think authenticity for me has just been the number one thing that I think has been important about who we are. It does show our character. We're not afraid to be transparent. We're not afraid to tell the truth. We're not afraid to tell you our failures. We think it actually creates more trust. And being real, like this goes all the way to our 2022 podcast, where I think half of the episodes you'll probably see me in shorts, t-shirt, and a baseball cap, right?
Right.
We're just not afraid to be us. If you don't like us, well, then you're probably not listening to us. And if you like people who are just the real deal and are not afraid to get real and say it like it is and not like be afraid of what you think, we want everybody to like us, absolutely. But so if you don't, just don't tell us. That's right. But authenticity, I think, is just so powerful, because I think it builds trust between people when you can just say it like it is, and you know that people are not afraid to tell you when things are going wrong, and you know their character, that they're going to keep on working and never giving up until they get it right. So I think that's powerful. And then I've talked about this 2 or 3 times now on the podcast. If we started all over, what would we do differently? How would you answer?
Well, you know, our answer has typically been, ever since we bought the apartments, we would have went into multifamily first. But you said something different the other day on that podcast that threw me for a loop, and I'm like, ooh, I kind of like that idea too.
Yeah,
I mean, I like both ideas, but I think we probably would have probably done both, because I don't know that you have being a passive investor in you. I think you would last about 2 days, and then you would be calling somebody up, saying, "How can I make my money more active?" So I think that we would be doing both.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So on the podcast yesterday, when he asked me, I actually did have a new answer, and I think at different stages of your life, your answers change, right? And so this is something that I hadn't really been pondering, but at that moment I was like, okay, Dani, like really answer that question. What is the truth today? Not the answer that you've given last year, because that was the truth last year. And so it was really, number one, I thank God for where we are today. I think that everything happened for a reason. We're exactly where we should be.
Yep.
Number two, when we got into real estate, the question of which path is right for me, I wish we would have been told about the passive path, because we had been in the art auction business for quite a while and had a good sum of money. And if we would have known how to use that money wisely, instead of going into the realtor path and spending 8 months with no income and spending our savings every single month, maybe we would have taken half of our bucket and put it into a passive, opportunity. So we had something growing while we were working on this other, active part. Maybe we'd have just been wiser about the buckets of where we put our funds. So I wish I would have had a little bit more education at that point in time. It doesn't mean the decision would have been different.
Right.
That's what I said yesterday.
Yes, sir.
I don't know that I would have made a different decision. We might have gone down exactly this path because it was simply meant to be for us. But I love now that we are teaching about the active investor and the passive investor so that we can help people truly feel like they are making an informed decision about the path that they want to be on, whether that be active or passive. Because truly active is another job.
Yep.
You're chasing freedom. You are, and we got to freedom doing it the active way. But you are giving yourself another job, and you aren't designing your lifestyle first. Meaning, if you want to be traveling, if you want to be spending time with your family, if you want to be going to your kids' game, if you want to be putting them through private school and be, participating in their life, another job, especially if you're going to keep your first one, your life is going to get away from you.
Yep.
And it certainly did for us, but we didn't have kids, so I can look back and go, it was worth it because we did it together.
Right.
So your life might be different. So just trying to get everybody to really think about those questions. And then lastly, favorite book. I think you said what yours, is it still 3 Feet from Gold?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. My favorite book is Who Not How. I've become a firm believer in bringing on people who already know how to do things. So I don't have to teach them. I don't have to train them. They're actually... they have more knowledge and experience in areas that I do not, so they are a value add to me and to our companies, so that we can build more strategically. And so that was a game changer because as we were growing, we did have to hire people where we had to train and teach, and that is not easy to do. People are the hardest part of building a business.
Yes.
And that's why I'm so thankful for our team and the people that are still with us. It was meant to be that they are still here and on this journey at the stage that we're at, and we're excited for where we're going. So the last thing that we're going to do on every single episode is...
Real quick with Flip.
Okay, can you tell us about this?
Yeah, no, it's just something fun, so I'm going to ask a question. So, which would you rather? Which would you rather? Would you rather replace a roof or a hot water heater?
Water heater.
I don't know. Roofs last longer.
This is why we like it.
Exactly. So, are you looking at multifamily or single family?
Multifamily.
There we go. So it's what it was. The other one was cost segregation versus bonus depreciation, which I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know either one of them. So we're gonna probably we're gonna bypass that one.
They have some similarities that we won't even get into. But anyways, I think that's going to be a fun game to talk with people. So Flip's going to do some research on our guests as they come on to figure out, what their field is, what type of hobbies or interests that they have. And we're just going to have some fun at the end of every episode with a real quick for Flip. And maybe that just kind of takes us on a couple tangents while we're on it.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sure I'll have fun with
that. Baseball or football?
Both. Way to go. Depends on the time of year.
Glad you're in charge of real quick Flip.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us.
I think you should have had football or soccer.
That would have been easier,
yeah.
Thank you for joining us for our very first episode. We are so excited to be launching this, the Freedom Show, and having other guests telling and sharing their journey of freedom and what that means to them and how it can help you on your path. And, if there's anything that we can do for you, that's why we're here. That's why we have this podcast, is so we can share our story and help you any way that we can. So visit chatwithfreedom.com. That is going to go directly to our website, which is freedomfamilyinvestments.com. But chatwithfreedom.com is so much easier to remember, and it's going to take you straight to the page where you can talk to our investor relations team. I believe JR, Ben, CJ, they're all on that website. We're actually growing, so those people may change. You may have multiple people, but you can just check out what do you want to talk about. If you want to talk about turnkey, you're going to go to one person. If you're going to talk about funds and syndications, you're going to have another person or multiple people to choose from. So go to chatwithfreedom.com and you'll be able to talk to our team. Ask us any questions. There's never an obligation. This is all a learning process. You should get comfortable with anything that you're going to do before you do it. That's what we believe in, and that's why we had the journey we had.
Love it.
So, is there anything else, Flip, that we forgot?
I don't think there's possibly there is.
Okay, let's call this first one a wrap.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you on episode number 2.
Hey, everybody. We're still walking around Animal Kingdom. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yes, we're super, super excited about these episodes. More importantly, we're excited about the idea of just getting real. That's super important to us because even though this episode was about building 6 companies in 6 years and sharing with you our freedom journey, we started real estate investing in 2008, as we shared with you, or actually we started on our realtor path in 2008. So this was not an overnight success. We want to be here to inspire you. We want to be here to be a resource for you. We want to be here so that you know that you can do it too, and to never give up. It's really, really important to us and a deep, deep passion. So if there's anything that we can do, please reach out. We also want to be able to tell you more about what we're doing right now at the conclusion of every episode. And right this moment in our companies, we are getting ready to close down our Master Note program. It's an investment opportunity that is very customizable. It's for non-accredited and accredited investors, which is very unique. It has a high rate of return, 10 to 12% interest. It also has high liquidity, meaning you can cash out in a year if you choose to. You can also auto-renew it every single year if you choose to. You can get distributions, you can have compound interest. It's a very super customizable investment opportunity, and we don't always have it open, and it's just something that you just don't see. Usually when you have the benefit of liquidity, you have very low rates of return because your benefit is to be able to grab those funds back at any time that you want. So if you want more information about that, please reach out to us. Chatwithfreedom.com. You're going to see Ben and CJ lock a time on their calendar. But we're super excited about next week's episode.
That's right. Next Wednesday, episode number 2, we actually talk with Annie Yetch. Annie is a former consultant for the Defense Intelligence Agency.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. And she's also one of the top performance and leadership coaches in the world. So it's very exciting. We had a blast. Just some mind-blowing discussion. So we hope to see you next Wednesday on episode 2.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions and information on the show are not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss.